10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
America's front line of defense is this computer. It is totally secure. Or is it?
You're really into computers, huh?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Dialing into the school's computer.
Are those your grades?
Yep. I don't think that I deserved it. Do you?
You can't do that.
Already done.
You can go to jail for that.
Only if you're over 18. This computer company is coming out with these amazing new games in a couple of months. I want to play those games. Wow.
What?
We got something.
Games refers to models, simulations, and games which have
That must be
tactical and
them.
strategic application.
Greetings. Game time is near. Shall we play a game?
Love to. Let's play. Global thermonuclear war.
Fine.
All right.
We have a launch detection. We have a Soviet launch. What the hell?
Missile warning, no malfunction.
Oh my God.
I repeat, confidence is high.
Mr. President, this is Barry for NORAD.
Is this a game or is it real?
What's the difference?
Wargames. Begin playing June 3rd at a theater near you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to the show. On today's show, we are stepping back into the Cold War with a movie that made us rethink the phrase, shall we play a game? Yes, we're diving into the 1983 classic, as Six says in the chat, the perfect movie, 1983 classic Wargames, directed by the great John Badham. And it's not just a nostalgic trip back to rotary phones and floppy disks. It was a cinematic wake-up call to the dangers of technology and the thin line between play and peril. And it's a thriller that combined that tension of global warfare with the emerging world of computer hacking, and long before the internet became a household name. So we're going to be exploring that, all those topics. We're going to look at the impact of the movie on pop culture, questions it raised about artificial intelligence and the military application of said intelligence. And yeah, we're just going to be looking at all that great stuff to do with, I think it's a lot of people's favorite movie or in the list of favorite movies. So grab your popcorn, log into your NORAD mainframe, and let's play a game of global thermonuclear war. Welcome, everybody. How are we all today?
I got my tea, We're ready to talk about the nuclear weapons.
Nuclear, the nuclear, or the nuclear?
Let's talk about them all.
The Whopper, the War Operation Plan Response Computer. What's up?
It has their responses to our responses to their responses to our responses.
Exactly.
Counts the dead.
Everybody loves a Whopper.
Especially when it's good at tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed. So I would like to welcome to the show Max Redstone. How are you, my friend?
Good afternoon from the shores of sunny California. Thank you for having me. I messaged you the other day. I'm like, I have to be on this panel. This is my favorite movie. And I actually studied strategic policy and nuclear weapons and the military pretty much all my life, but particularly in college. And this was the formative movie that kind of bloomed the inspiration for it.
It's interesting you say that, because it wasn't the strategic policy, stick your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye.
Well, that's the coping strategy. But it's like well, funny story, because I told you I'd be the nerd. There's a place called Raven Rockets where all the executives are supposed to run in case of a nuclear war. And there's a book by a guy named Garrett Graff about it. And Ike, Eisenhower, he had for 8 years throughout his administration these operational exercises because we're gonna say, okay, in the case of a nuclear war, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, and they try to administrate it. And in 1960, the last year of his administration, he's like, it was just apparent that it was unadministratable, and the thing that broke him was they were in the mountain, and what happened? Francis Gary Powers, the U-2 that got shot down over Russia, and they couldn't even administer that effectively. From there, how are they going to do the war? So the end point is like, you can't win a nuclear war; it's just unwinnable. And it all started with me asking my dad, like as a little kid, how are John Spencer and Michael Madsen? What are they going to do after? Like, how are they going to get out of the silo if it's sealed? And it's like, well, they'll climb out of the missile tube. I'm like, okay.
Assuming they've not been nuked too.
Well, it's like, okay, well, that's not an acceptable answer, and I'm not going to question you on it, but I'm going to look for my own answer. So, anyway.
An interesting introduction. A movie inspired an entire career.
Well, not a career, but an intellectual pursuit.
Well, indeed, it's great to have you here to talk about these things. There's an awful lot to talk about in this movie, not the least the fact it is back in the Cold War. Remember the Cold War? So paranoia was at a high and always at a high. Ike mentioning Ike, wasn't it his administration that invented the nuclear fridge that you could hide in when there was a nuclear explosion?
Well, according to I don't know, according to Kathleen Kennedy, sure. Why not? Sure, why not?
The nuclear fridge.
It's like I'm 45 and I'm like the last issue of I'm the last one issued of Generation X, and we had that in Florida. Oh, you could be facing instant nuclear annihilation, and then the subsequent generations had the war on terror and whatnot. But we had that. We were the last generation of the Cold War, so. So not lost on me.
Yeah, exactly. You last to grow up under that shadow. Different shadows have appeared, of course, but that one I remember it well. I mean, I was in the military in that era, of course. We're getting a lot of things because there are memberships on the channel, and first of all, D. Bud Martin has gifted 5 That 70s Rock fan memberships. He is also himself a member of the high stickers level. Thank you, D-Bud, for doing that. Lots of people are getting those, but Legalize Adulthood, who's also guesting on today's show, has gifted 20 That 70s Rock fan memberships. So a whole bunch of people, too many to mention, are getting those. Please feel free to use.
My gosh, I'm a member now.
Yes, so I've gone from 2 to 30 members in the space of a few minutes. So please feel free to use those custom emojis. I can even add more now.
Can you explain the addition of your user account on Monday, August 12th, 2024?
So thank you to D. Bud Martin and Legalize Adulthood. D-Bud, of course, is a member at the high stickers level.
What is high sticking?
High sticking happen when the guy take the stick, and he go like that. You don't do that.
You don't do that?
Oh, no, never, never.
Why not?
Against the rules.
You're just some English pig with no brain. See, you need to finish that, man. I want that line in there.
We're gonna have to let these little animations run their way through because I wasn't expecting to get the 25 of them in one show. But also the level I believe that most people have been signed up to is one of the it's this great level. So that's the Get the Flock Out level. There is a level in between, which is this one, the Groupies.
That's the chick, the motorcycle helmets indoors. That's proper.
So until all those noises disappear and all that jumping up and down, I would like to thank and welcome to the show, great friend of the show and a great guy, hung out with him in Vegas. We had a great time. Legalized adulthood. How are you, sir?
Woohoo!
Hey!
I am here to fill in lots of computer context that is period with this movie. So,
well, that's great because there is some specific period equipment used in this particular movie. We're going to talk about that for sure. Some very interesting.
I just rewatched it Sunday, and then I listened to the audio commentary today, and the screenwriters thought they were inventing some things, but they actually were just unaware of current technology at the time. So we'll talk about that when the time comes.
Oh,
well,
sure.
I'll appreciate that. I'll get out my 8-inch floppy disk.
Also, our great friend, and it's really great to see her here in the chat. Six is here. Woo! $10 super chat or super sticker from Six. It's the Shiba dog squeezing a big red heart. And thank you, Six, for squeezing my heart like you always do. I appreciate that very much. I think that deserves some kind of video clip. Let's find something worthwhile. Our great friend Courtney.
Because I never read the captions first. I'm like, wait, I know her. I know who she is.
Our great friend Courtney, and thank you, Six, for that. Well, welcome everyone to the chat. I haven't finished saying hello to all the panel yet, but welcome to everyone in the chat. It's a great turnout today. It's a great movie. We all love this movie.
Snowda Poopus, I hope you like vodka. No, son, but I hope they don't bring any of them damn fish eggs.
Yeah, so lots of great people in there, and thanks to everyone, especially those who I want to pay a great tribute to D-Bud Martin and Davina, who do all the modding. D-Bud particularly is my right leg man, right hand man, Canadian Spider-Man as well, but all you great folks in the chat who are now, many of you are now members, and as I say, you can use those wonderful emojis and so on. But also in the chat, in the panelists today, our dear friend Joe. How are you, mate?
I'm doing fantastic, Brian. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty damn good, I have to say. It's a great day, a great day.
Yeah. This came out June 3rd of 83. I just graduated high school, was fixing to join the military the last month of the year, or last month of the summer. I was taking the summer off, and love this flick. I've told people several times that I don't worry about a nuclear war, and Max, if you've done a lot of research, you know why. I'm right next to one of the 2 SAC bases here in the United States. Not North Dakota. I'm right next to Barksdale. I'm one neighborhood away, so I'm top of the priority list for their targets.
I'm in San Diego, so I'm in San Diego. I'm well couched.
Yeah, indeed. Good. Thanks for being here, Joe, mate, as always. And also, Imp, how are you, my friend?
Doing all right. No real complaints today.
Good.
On vacation, so I really don't give a shit.
Life is one big long vacation for me, so I feel you. I feel you, man. And also our great friend Pope Metallicus. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, man. I'm glad to be talking about this movie, especially because I just rewatched it, and I think I'd seen it in high school a couple of times. Talking about the Cold War and stuff like that, and being military, I kind of hear about things. And it's funny when this movie came out because like 6 months later, we had a major scare with the Soviet Union over things like this, where they thought one of our nuclear exercises, Able Archer 83, was real.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually almost launched on us.
Indeed, and that's a great thing about this movie. Yes, it's science fiction, but it's so close to the bone, or to what could happen, or maybe would happen, that it was even at the time it was like, yeah, this is feasible. This is very possible.
And as I think what I pointed out in the chat before is the thing I do love about this movie is the economy of the scenery and that you have the silo, you have the launch control center, and you have the war room, but there's so many other things like FKHC 2005.0. Well, they didn't really switch off. Jack Behringer didn't switch off with the Canadian Air Marshal over 24 hours, but everything that you have in the war room, it represents things that were part of the strategic defense at that time.
Yeah, it's got a lot of verity in many areas to it. And I mean, I was in the military at the time on active service, and plus being a sci-fi guy, I absolutely loved this movie when it came out. I've always loved it, but it always struck me as it's a tight thriller, for one thing. You mentioned there's not a lot of wasted time or meandering off into different sets or whatever. It's very tight. John Badham's great at directing tight thrillers. It's to the point, and it presents to me a realistic scenario. And if it was realistic then, how much more realistic could it be now with the advancement of computers?
Yeah.
So,
and John Badham was not the original director. It was supposed to be Martin Brest, who directed Beverly Hills Cop, Midnight Run, Scent of a Woman.
Hoorah!
Yeah.
I don't know. That opening scene in the silo is very tense. I love the opening scene of it. Yeah.
It definitely. Oh man. Babyface Michael Madsen.
Well, I won't be able to show big long clips today for copyright reasons, but I do have this little clip.
3.
Put your hand on the keys,
2,
sir.
1. Launch.
Sir, we are at launch. Turn your key.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Turn your key, sir.
Turn your key, sir.
And this is like what, 3 minutes in?
Yeah. It does not let you sit for a minute there.
And it's you can see the shift in. It's not like so much a shift in power. There's a high status, low status thing where you have John Spencer being, because it's the Missile Combat Crew Commander, the Deputy Missile. That's what the box says, like the MCCC and the DMCCC, and you see that high status, low status thing go from John Spencer, and it shifts over to Michael Madsen.
Yeah.
And just as a point, this illustrates the two-man principle, the two-man rule, which permeates after the president gives the launch. There is no part of handling nuclear weapons that does not involve at least two people. For example, if you're in one of those launch control capsules, you can't be in there alone. You either have it either has to be two people or it has to be empty. And that's the competence that pervades the U.S. nuclear command structure on every branch, even though that the Navy and the Air Force are the ones that have every branch eventually had their own nuclear weapons, and then they got rid of them for the Army and the Marines, but now it's the Navy and the Air Force. But it's always the two-man rule.
But at the heart of this is it better for a machine to be handling that process?
No,
or the two humans. That's at the very heart of the movie.
They show that a few times in different movies too.
Yes,
don't they? Crimson Tide. That's the whole thrust of that movie, right?
We did the great stream on the Colossus movie, and there is many differences, of course, between that and this. One is that Colossus, that computer, wanted to take over running the world and humans. This is more restricted to the ability to launch nuclear weapons and manage the military infrastructure around that.
Yeah.
Another aspect of that two-man rule is the physical layout of the launch control room is such that one person cannot physically reach both controls to twist both keys. Even if they had both keys, they cannot reach more than one key.
Even if they were a basketball player.
And that's even those were that was a Minuteman 2 kind of layout. Now we have Minuteman 3 and it's, even though the people sit next to each other, it's still the same thing. And in our submarines, you have to have the captain and the weapons officer in separate rooms, push it, either turning a key or pulling a trigger at different times in the same loop. And then at Crimson Tide I like because it examines that human aspect rather than the machine aspect. But
at the core of this is it a machine better than a human in this instance? The other difference between Colossus, and we'll talk about this when we're going through the movie still as well, but is this is restricted around the use of it for the military application. Colossus, the computer, uses that to threaten the rest of humanity. Here, he just wants to manage the nuclear arsenal and its response.
And we have the scenario silo setting the entree for us to meet all the war room players, which is Barry Corbin, Dabney Coleman, and so forth.
So let's look through a little bit of that, because what I like to do in these shows is just to run through the main cast and principles. The movie itself, I think somebody mentioned earlier, was released in June 1983.
June 3rd,
1983. United Artists produced, MGM distributed, $12 million budget, but had a global box office of 124 million plus, not to mention VHS.
10 times the return. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Fifth biggest movie in
Can we just talk a little bit about what it was like to live in 1983 for people who may be younger and not realize the extreme level of paranoia about nuclear war that was going on all the time?
Absolutely.
Because Reagan was in his first term of presidency, and rightly or wrongly, the press portrayed Reagan as somebody who was going to just smack the button at the slightest provocation. And that was part of his, peace through strength policy. That was not a secret. And so a lot of people were living in fear of bona fide nuclear war. They thought it was, the closest we'd come since Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah,
and it was.
And that movie, Testament, which was more of an art movie about the aftermath of nuclear war, had come out, and
the day after,
man, I went and saw that movie in the theater, and when that movie was over, it was like a funeral. Everybody got up and walked out, and nobody said a word. So that was the fear of nuclear war was palpable and daily. I actually had a nightmare about nuclear war, the only true nightmare I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, it
so
was
prevalent.
And to your point, I served on an island in the middle of the ocean in 1985. I was guarding chemical weapons, but this place was a testing platform for missiles in the 60s, Johnston Atoll. And I was out there for a year, and we had a Russian trawler at the 12-mile limit watching us every day. I mean, we knew they were there. We watched each other very closely in the 80s.
It's interesting to point out the dichotomy between the Cuban Missile Crisis and 1983, because in the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had nuclear. We didn't have absolute nuclear supremacy, but we pretty much did have nuclear supremacy over the Russians. And after the Cuban Missile Crisis, both the U.S. and Soviet Union said, wow, these nuclear weapons, they're very powerful and they're very dangerous and they could destroy the world. But we, as the Americans, said, you know what, we need to get rid of some of them. And the Russians said, yeah, we need to get more of them. So you look at this chart and you see our peak, America's peak of having deployed nuclear weapons is around the Cuban Missile Crisis. And then the Soviet peak is really around 1983, when we had this second time when Reagan said, you know what, I'm not going to try and beat you, but I cannot let you win. And it was also going on at the same time when when financially, economically, communism was really in a death spiral, and they weren't letting people know that that really was painted rust.
Had they started their troubles in Afghanistan at this point?
Yeah, they had.
I believe they had.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
No,
were in
79.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were there.
So this is as rightly pointed out, this is the atmosphere that this movie was made in. It was still a thing. The Cold War was still on.
Because
and a lot of fears were around if the Soviet Union did disintegrate, perhaps that somebody would start pressing the button over there, you know. But then technology layered upon that. So new technologies, supercomputers, which had always been a part of the military for many years. A lot of that is folded into this, and concerns over that too. But anyway, just to return to the movie and some of the people who were in it. As I said, this was the 5th biggest movie in North America in 1983, and it did it on significantly less theaters than some. Can anyone tell me what the 4 movies bigger than it were?
83?
In 1983.
I'd have to
Box
look that
office
up.
wise. Just a quick pop quiz. No doubt. some
Rock and Roll
people-
High School.
Close. It should have been. Well, Return of the Jedi was the top.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Forgot
Then
about that.
Tootsie was number 2.
Really?
Really?
Wow.
Flashdance was number
Yeah.
3.
Oh, well.
Hot chick, water.
Trading Places was 4.
Yeah, okay.
And this was 5. This was
Oh,
the
I
5th.
thought Trading Place was 82. Okay.
Well, maybe it spilled over into 83. I don't know.
I was fixing to say it came out in Christmas of '82. So yeah.
Yeah, so that was the movie environment that it was in. I mean,
Yeah.
these are all top movies. This one starred obviously Matthew Broderick, and there's a little poll in the chat about Matthew Broderick for those who wish to click on such things. Playing David Lightman, the archetypal slacker hacker.
Yep.
80s and 90s nerdy favorite. If you think back, it was.
Oh, yeah.
Was that
Are you
kid?
kidding me? Everything this guy touched turned to gold. Everything he was in as a young man.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And this was fairly early in his career as well, I think. I think he'd only been in one movie before, which was this one, Max Dugan Returns.
Yeah.
Also featured Kiefer Sutherland's first movie appearance. And he did a lot of Neil Simon stuff over the years. I guess Neil Simon liked him.
I saw him in the pre-Broadway Chicago preview of The Producers.
Yes. I saw The Producers in the London run, but it didn't have Broderick in it, unfortunately.
Oh, it was good.
Why don't you have the Ferris Bueller poster on there? What's going on?
Well, I'm not there yet.
He's not
there.
I've not reached it yet.
And Broderick has bemoaned the fact that his career peaked at that point in his life. Like, it was a bad thing that he's always going to be known as Ferris Bueller, but we're just fans.
But he had been in a number of other great movies in the 80s and 90s. But obviously Ferris Bueller with
Hi, Mia.
with the
If I'd have seen this when I was in high school, I'd have never gone to class.
with the Gordie Howe Red Wings shirt on. Always around for that legendary John Hughes.
Oh,
movie.
Mia Sarah.
Gosh, gorgeous.
But he was quite the thing, Matthew Broderick. And it's not that he hasn't done anything since. I mean, there's been other things like Inspector Gadget and then Producers.
There was this, just as an aside, they were doing a visual test of John Hughes was doing a visual test of their outfits, and he was like, one day they just came back, it's like, oh god, they don't look like they're getting along, and Matthew Broderick's like, oh, so we don't look like we're getting along, what a big deal. And
exactly. And also, how 80s is this? Ali Sheedy.
Man.
How 80s is Ali Sheedy? Brat Pack veteran.
I was in love with that girl back then.
She
oh
still
my gosh.
looks good. She still looks good.
Yeah.
That was only her second movie as well. She was in this
Bad Boys,
grittier Rad Boys, which is a great movie.
Yeah,
it is good.
Yeah, a really good one. So they were both pretty new to the movies. Obviously, massive Brat Pack person, Oxford Blues, Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire, but worked with John Badham again on Short Circuit.
Yeah,
another fantastic 80s movie.
Alive is alive.
Indeed. And she settled down since into sort of a TV and indie movie career. She's still with us, obviously, still looking pretty good.
Still looking pretty good.
But this also featured the late, great Dabney Coleman.
Yes.
As Dr. John McKittrick, whose wife still picks his ties
No, Jack, everything's functioning perfectly.
R.I.P. John McKittrick passed away May 16th of this year.
Yeah.
I think Yellowstone was one of the last shows he was in. He was in
he was at that ranch in Texas that they sent the young man to, right?
But here he is playing McKittrick, who's obviously Falcon's pupil, really, or sidekick.
Yeah.
There he is in Yellowstone. Great actor in so much stuff. 9 to 5, obviously.
Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah, on Golden Pond, Tootsie. Starred with on 9 to 5 in his
Tootsie and 9 to 5 are his best movies, if you ask me. He was great at playing the asshole. He was really good at it.
And Tootsie. So he was in two of the biggest hits of the year.
Muppets Take Manhattan.
Muppets Take Manhattan, and starred with Broderick in Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
So, and I loved him particularly in Boardwalk Empire.
Oh
which is
the
fabulous.
What was he? What was it? The Colonel or the
Commodore?
The Commodore.
There you go.
Yes.
Oh yes,
Commodore 64. No.
Yep.
So great actor, sadly departed, but in so much stuff.
This last year he passed. This year he passed away. Yeah.
And somebody mentioned this guy already. Great Texan, Barry Corbin.
Yes, that's who I was thinking of on Yellowstone. Was him?
Well, he's in Yellowstone too, isn't he?
That's what I was saying. He's the guy down in Texas. Yeah.
Thankfully, still with us.
Yep.
Look at that! What a great look that is.
Yeah.
What a great look.
One of alopecia's greatest victims.
That's right. He's Tulsa King. He's also in Tulsa King.
Oh yeah, Tulsa. Oh my gosh. He's so good, but he's so ubiquitous, but so good. You know?
Didn't break into movies till 1980, but then he became an absolute standard in so many things. TV. He played a lot of sheriffs, military, cowboys.
Yeah, if you needed a Texan general or sheriff in a movie, you went to this guy.
Barry Corbin. Yeah. He was in Dallas, Northern Exposure.
No Country for Old Men.
Lonesome Dove. This is No Country for Old Men, which is one of my favorite movies. Yeah. And they did some work with Clint on Any Which Way You Can, Honky Tonk Man. Great, absolute Texan to the core as well.
And a great improv ad-libber.
Oh yeah.
They the spark plug comment was based on something he personally witnessed.
Oh right, okay.
So that's where that comes from.
So fantastic cast. This really great cast. John Wood. Now John Wood's an interesting guy because he's even at the time as a Brit, I didn't really recognize him, although he'd been in a number of British things. But because he was more of a stage actor. Yeah, Shakespearean stuff. A lot of Shakespearean stuff along all the Gielguds and all that. Those guys, very acclaimed in that respect. And I actually started in movies in 1953, but mainly in British comedies. Here he is in The Avengers.
Wow.
In the 60s. Which is obviously one of my favorite television shows.
Not the MCU Avengers.
Not the MCU Avengers. And he ended up being in the crappy movie of the Avengers later.
Was he?
The Sean Connery one, yeah. Didn't really get... Wargames was kind of an entry. Yeah, there's the other Avengers movie. But he was in Lady Hawk with Broderick. Matthew Broderick. Woody Allen's Purple Rose of Cairo. Just started to get a number of roles. I don't think he ever reached the heights of he's never reached the heights of a McKellen or a Gielgud or any of those guys who've got a lot of TV American movie work. Great in The Madness of King George, if you've ever seen that movie. And I saw the stage play as well.
It's on my to-do list.
Yeah. So another great actor, but he was the Professor Falcon who kind of saves the day, but also creates the problem in the first place.
Yeah, right. He is the creator.
My fault. The whole idea was to practice nuclear war without killing ourselves.
Indeed. No, we're all going to die, so you might as well leave my little island or stay if you like.
But just 3 miles from a primary target.
That's right. Ha ha ha. I'm going to laugh as we all burn. Michael Madsen, of course. How baby-faced he is there.
Yeah.
Clean cut and baby-faced.
Yeah.
And then John Spencer, later, of course, of the West Wing.
I am a huge West Wing fan, and I love
John Spencer.
He is awesome.
Yeah.
He was one of the
Leo
best characters on that
McGarity,
show.
he was awesome. Yeah.
Screw the damn procedure. I want to get someone on the phone before I kill 25 million people.
That's it. Yeah.
I would like to have watched just a movie with these two.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then this guy, Eddie Deason,
Yeah.
who was played Melvin, one of the computer nerds that's in it. Also in Grease, but you'll see him in a number of other things. It's a very recognizable face.
I remember him. He was in a Magnum PI episode.
Yes, that's right. You just can't miss that face. And then Maury Chaikin.
Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head.
Right?
Potato Head.
Yeah. Maury Chaikin, half Canadian, half American. Twins, Dances with Wolves, My Cousin Vinny, Cutthroat Island, a bunch of stuff.
Fabulous character actor.
Yeah. And the director, of course, John Badham, very bankable in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I've forgotten, and I keep forgetting that he directed Saturday Night Fever.
Yes, he did.
Which, adjusted for inflation today, made well over $1 billion. You know, I just keep forgetting it was him that did that. Because it's a drama, not just a music thing, you know.
Right.
But he had a lot of hits back in the day.
The One in the Middle is the best movie he ever made, if you ask me. That is one of the most hilarious movies you'll ever see.
Stakeout.
Oh my God, it's great.
Short
Love it.
Circuit, Bird on a Wire, but also three of my favorites.
Blue Thunder. I forgot about that
Blue
one. Yeah, he
Thunder,
did.
which I adore that movie.
Oh, I do too. I do.
The Hard Way is one of the funniest and best comedy action things ever.
It's a bit of a different. It's a regular cop drama, but it's a really good cop drama.
Yeah, and Stephen Lang is such a great villain in it. Dracula, Frank Langella's Dracula, which is
That was a
one
good
of the,
Dracula. Yeah,
it was. So
I
great
enjoyed it.
director, a lot of hits. Wargames, I think, is his second biggest financial hit next to Saturday Night Fever. The writers were a guy called Lawrence Lasker, was one of them. Didn't write a lot of stuff, but Sneakers was another one he did. And then he wrote Project X, which I'd forgotten all about.
I was going to ask about that Broderick movie. That's the one where he works with the chimps on the NASA project, right?
right.
Something like that.
So they're irradiating the chimps to see how long a flight crew could last after being exposed to a nuke.
They weren't radiating them so they could become Boeing Starliner engineers.
Don't give them any ideas.
And the other writer is a guy called Walter Parks, who's actually worked with Lasker a lot, but he co-wrote Sneakers as well. But he's mainly a producer or executive producer. Men in Black, Minority Report, Gladiator, Gladiator 2, strangely enough. This guy's Parks has produced many great movies. For some reason, he's a writer on this one. And then they just getting close to the end of obviously our run of who's behind the movie. William Fraker is the cinematographer. He did stuff like Bullet and Rosemary's Baby in 1941. But also he was the DP on Incubus, the William Shatner Esperanto movie.
Oh,
that's a deep cut, brother.
That is a deep cut. How deep is that? So he was the DP on that movie.
They did a really good job with one of Imperitus's baby pictures there, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know.
He was also the DP on Paint Your Wagon.
Was born under a wandering star.
I would have wanted to handle sound on that movie.
Right.
Well, speaking of sound, the music on this one, a great soundtrack on Wargames is Arthur B. Rubinstein.
Yep.
Worked with John Badham a lot. Did that great Blue Thunder soundtrack, which is one of the best.
And then just the use of as a former baritone player, it's wow, he really used the percussion well in this score.
Oh god, yeah, it's such a tight movie. Everything fits together so well. Before
I've always thought, I've told you this before, that they could take War Games, the Terminator, and the Matrix and show the evolution of the machines taking over, right? I've always thought that.
It
I always
could.
thought this was the first
Oh,
chapter.
yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So looking at some of the, we talked briefly about the hardware. I know Richard Legalize wants to.
And I just got to point out one other honorable mention. Jason Bernard, who was the African American captain. It's like, Sergeant, I hope you like vodka. Yeah.
That's right.
You know, take NORAD is declared Defcon 3. Yeah,
When we when we go through some of the stills, we'll point those guys out. But also, just before we get onto those movie stills, and then we can just chat about anything we want to do with the movie, the hardware that's used, revolutionary looking at the time, because I mean, who even had a computer at home?
Yeah,
in '83, not that many.
Nobody
people.
did. Nobody
So
did.
one of the main pieces of kit that's I know Legalize is going to want to talk about this stuff. A lot of the graphics were done on the NORAD screens using these HP 8. These were the I guess they were the main, or one of the main home computers, the HP 9845C, which had color graphics. And I think what they did...
This would have been used by an engineer or a scientist in a lab. It was too expensive for home use unless you were...
Yeah.
Right.
Like you worked at HP and then maybe you got one at home.
My dad actually has one at home because
notoriously
my mother
expensive.
worked for HP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that they used them for in this movie was they used them to produce all the vector graphics for the NORAD screens.
Yeah. Wow.
But they didn't display that on the screens. They produced those, then filmed each one, compiled that into a moving film, and then projected it onto those screens.
And they had to all be synchronized, so it looked seamless.
So there was quite the effort. It was a guy called Colin Cantwell was the graphic design consultant. I think I'm right in saying all that Legalized, that's how they did those screens.
Yes, that's how they did. Well, I don't know about the graphics, but how they got them up onto the screen is that they had 12 projectors and they were all synced up for every. They had to be like resynced for every reshoot.
So apparently they reused those graphics and the set design for movies like. Right for decades after they reused that stuff. You can see here an example in the background. Doesn't it look familiar?
The prototype for the ceilingless control center, right?
Yeah.
It was called
it
was called NORAD's
the missile silo launch sequence was also reused.
Yes, they reused that stuff in multiple movies. So every time you're watching a movie that's kind of about this stuff, just take a look at the background or and you might just see something familiar. So that was
What is that, Edge of Tomorrow that's from?
That's Edge of Tomorrow, yeah. But they used it in Minority Report and I think in other stuff. There was all sorts of areas those vector graphics were reused and the set design. So but this HP 16-bit dual processor system with 128 kilobytes of firmware and ROM, up to 1.5 megabytes of RAM.
128K, that must have cost $5,000 back then.
Integrated tape mass storage, full size keyboard with numeric keyboard.
$5,000 would have been the low end model.
Integrated.
You can find an HP catalog and look it up, but it probably typical would have been anywhere from like $9,000 to $15,000.
Yeah. Well, I will defer to you, but yeah, that's totally. Oh my God, I remember we had a TI 90, 44A. And it was a big thing when we got the speech synthesizer for Parsec.
This is a Falcon's computer that you see in the Falcon clips. And it's the IBM AN FSQ7 Combat Direction Central Air Force.
I didn't notice it in the clip where they showed Falcon. He's just it's a tight shot of him among some cabinets. So it's kind of hard to see what computer he's at.
It is, but apparently it's supposed to be one of these, which was the Air Force's semi-automatic ground environment system used to track and intercept bombers.
Yeah, this is what was commissioned in the early 50s, was deployed around 57 and ran continuously until about 82 or 83, where they decommissioned the last unit. And this was to gather radar track data from the Dew Line and any other radar stations and Texas towers that are located out at sea, bring all that stuff together over the commercial phone network, over modems, where it's processed at the radar receiver end and reduced into a data stream that's transmitted over phone lines and then received at a central command center, and all the results are visualized on a large display. And I've actually given 1-hour talks on this system because it's a very early interactive computer graphics system using drum memory for the displays and core memory for the main computer. And it's a vacuum tube computer. There's 2 computers that run simultaneously in case there's a failure. They're both running the same code constantly. And if there's a failure, it hot swaps over to the other machine while the failure in the one machine is replaced.
Because there's a long history of these supercomputers being used by the military, and this is one of the big ones.
Yeah, this is technically before the term supercomputer, which kind of came into vogue in the 60s. And the thing is this machine, because it was a vacuum tube machine, they started replacing it with semiconductor-based machines in the 60s. So it was almost immediately obsolete. And what happened is many of these panels that were part of this machine's maintenance, because the idea is it had to stay running 24/7. So when something broke, they would plug it into a maintenance console that had a big array of blinking lights that would tell you which component on the plugged-in circuit board was failing. So that big blinky light panel that was for the maintenance console got sold off to Hollywood props departments and became a mainstay of TV and movies until this day.
Sleeper, Spaceballs, Lost in Space. That
freaking maintenance console appears in the hatch in Lost.
It's incredible.
It's just
everywhere.
It's just fascinating how much of our information infrastructure nowadays was born by these innovations that were motivated by the Cold War.
Indeed. But just to talk about this briefly, Richard, 250-ton installation, 20,000 square feet, and 60,000 vacuum tubes.
Wow, it's a 5-story concrete hardened bunker building that houses this computer, houses the generators that generate the power for it. Should it go out, be attacked, because it's not going to have access to the power grid, and all the massive cooling and everything needed to keep the whole thing running.
Just incredible. Yeah.
And there's a subway.
So
the machine is so big that the consoles that people work at have telephones at them so they can talk to people in other parts of the facility.
They couldn't just email each other? No. Just kidding.
No, email wasn't a thing yet.
So David's set up, though. David in his house has this IMSAI set up. We had a dual 8-inch floppy disk drive, keyboard, 17-inch monitor, a 212. I'm reading this of obviously 212A modem, although the movie used a 212A modem, which could communicate at 1200 baud.
1200.
Yeah,
insane.
1200 was smoking hot for back then.
Yeah,
and although it wasn't needed because he had a 212A modem in the movie, they used the acoustic coupler just because it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't need it with his setup, but it's being used that where he puts the handset on the coupler.
You could get 1200 baud out of acoustic coupler, but anything higher, you needed a leased line to guarantee the electrical integrity of signal integrity.
Yeah, and he's using a CompuPro System 816 computer. So this is state of the art
for the time.
It wasn't state of the art.
No,
it's
it was a couple
few years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is late. This is mid to late 70s gear, and in the commentary they talk about how did this kid have all this computer shit in his bedroom, and they say, well, this gear is actually a few years old, and the idea was that he would, somebody else would get a newer computer and discard the old one, and he'd kind of beg it off of them.
Yeah, so
which makes sense.
And he had those 2 guys that he was friends with down at the local.
Right.
Yeah, so you'd be getting the cast-off gear, but it still did the job enough for him to nearly start a war. So Yeah,
to do 1200 baud does not take much compute power at all.
So that's some of the gear used in the movie. But still, at the time, most people going to see that movie wouldn't even had any kind of a PC in their home.
No, I didn't have my first one till damn near the 90s.
Yeah, so it would have looked like magic to them. Oh my God, he's doing this.
Well, I think the real answer to the question is, how do you have all that gear? His mom was the Century 21 sales madwoman, and she saved money on energy by not cooking the corn.
There you go. you can taste all the vitamins.
Can we take vitamins?
I mean, he doesn't have new gear. An IBM PC came out in 1981. That would have been current year gear. So he's got older gear.
Sure, but he still knows how to use it.
Yeah, but Mr. and Mrs. Lightman are just such a cute couple. I just got
they are.
Out. Anyway, here we go.
It's the knowledge of how to exploit the system that he's got, how to figure out how to dial into stuff and find.
Actually, if you pay attention to this movie, it's still the most effective vector for attacking a computer system is to do social engineering, and that's exactly what he does in this movie. Yeah. He uses social engineering to get the password to the school computer. He does research on the inventor of the Falcon system, on Falcon. Research on that to do social engineering to guess that the guy's password might be his dead son's name.
He takes you out. He takes you on that journey just enough. Again, the economy of the scenes for you as the viewer to understand, and for us to go along on that journey with them.
But what this is interesting, and somebody mentioned it earlier, I think either on here or on the chat, that this was they didn't know it, but they were being tested. What would happen if Michael Madsen had actually shot John Spencer? Because then they thought, oh, it's okay, it was only a test.
Yeah,
friendly fire.
And it's like, you have this scene afterward when they're all talking. It's like, am I supposed to tell the president that 22% of his missile commanders don't?
Yeah, I was wondering. Yeah, I was wondering what the percentage was. It was 22% that wouldn't launch. Yeah,
and then it's like, wait a second, John Spencer and Michael Madsen are 22% of our missile commanders. But no, it's. I think the original script called for it to they kind of left that line out where it's like, oh yeah, we tested everyone just like this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the reality of it is these guys are screened before they go into that job.
Oh yeah,
they will pull the trigger every time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've talked with missile submarine captains. Like, I'm gonna turn the key, and the weapons officer is gonna pull his trigger. Those missiles will fly, and they will not come back.
We're in Crimson Tide territory as well, then, because it's I mean, if your duty is to push the button,
and the message has been authenticated, and that everything is in the right. Yeah.
And there was actually a big to-do, like, because Reagan at one point made a faux pas in a press conference that, oh yeah, well, the thing about the submarine is that we can recall them, and like they had to backtrack that immediately.
Mm. So this NORAD shoot here, are they using actual footage or are they just pretending?
Both.
No,
they talk about it in the commentary that they made a mock-up, but they
so some of the exteriors.
Later they got a tour of the facility, like after the movie was made, and they found out that a lot of the things that they were mocking up were true to form. They were accurate.
The actual
there's an exterior shot where it says NORAD, and you can tell that that's identical to the Stargate SG-1 exterior. So that's a real exterior shot. But then there's another exterior shot where that is their mock-up.
Yeah, just to be a dork about it, the actual tunnel is like the door is alongside. It's not like a dead end. That's because if there was an actual blast, God forbid, the blast would go past the door.
Right.
So, yeah, the tunnel goes in one side of the mountain and comes out another part of the mountain.
Exactly.
for pressure relief in case something like that happens.
They didn't use them.
Yes,
well,
precisely.
The comment was, I wonder if it's the same mock-up they used for Stargate. So Stargate has an interior mock-up, but the exterior shots are legit filmed at the site.
Okay.
Yeah. There have been men in these silos since before you were watching Howdy Doody.
Right? Yeah. This guy, he's too much, man. He really is.
You know, and
I
you
love Barry Corbin.
I mean, there's other people in the room, but it's really McKittrick versus
the general.
Behringer.
Which is the general, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I like
what's
about this
interesting is when they're
ahead,
discussing these war plans, I learned on the commentary that there are actual war plans, and I think up until like 2003, the official war plan was called SIOP, SIOP, Single Integrated Operation Plan, or something like that.
Yeah.
And they said they didn't like the sound of that acronym, so they made up Whopper instead.
All right, Whopper.
Yeah,
I like Whopper though. I mean, it's just.
But it's interesting with the 6 minutes is that because there's a woman called an author called Annie Jacobson that I read, and her latest book covers a theoretical nuclear war scenario from the very second of launch to 72 minutes after. And the concept of the president being informed and briefed and having 6 minutes to decide is very big on that. It's very big with it. It's a real thing. It still is. 6 minutes.
They make fun of it in Buckaroo Banzai because the president signs the declaration of war, the short form.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of speculation too, but it's probably real that if NORAD detected a full-scale launch from Russia, they're not waiting for the president's signature. Missiles are flying within a minute after that.
Well, the official, unofficial is that you have to have the president's authority to not only to authenticate those orders, but the national security agency has to generate the codes to launch. Not if the president wants to launch 20 missiles, not 18, not 19, not 21, but 20 missiles, then there is a code that will from the national security agency to do that. There is a way for the president to release command authority in an emergency to the Air Force Stratcom, but officially, unofficially, no. The president is the one who has that sole authority to launch nuclear weapons.
As per the dead zone.
Yeah.
Can I just say that biology class scene, like I thought that just perfectly captured high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the perfect high school moment.
Well, this is
funny.
The two girls talking, not paying attention, and he's flirting with the girls.
And he's coming in late and doesn't care.
Your wife?
Wife?
Get out.
Get out. Mr. Liggett wants me to have a discussion with Mr. Kessler about my attitude.
And then we find out that in this
He did it on purpose, right?
Even in this era, all the test scores are being put on computer.
Yep.
So you can just go in and change it. How to impress
in the commentary,
girls.
they said people thought school teachers thought that was unrealistic. But
I
think it was just depending on which school you were at, because I can easily see that.
I do remember my
school.
report cards were printed on a dot matrix printer, so it had a computer attached to it somehow.
The question was whether you could dial into the computer, and I don't. People who are only aware of computers connecting to each other in the internet era, they don't realize how common it was for a machine to have a modem on it for you to connect to it externally.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you knew about it.
Yeah,
you had to know about it for sure.
You did.
And
peer-to-peer.
People did.
Peer-to-peer.
It would easily be the case that you would use that computer for years and not realize it had a modem connection, because only the sysadmin or somebody that was a system programmer would know about that. The ordinary user wouldn't know about it.
So here's where the movie.
I used a computer all the time over the modem, from 78 onwards.
But this is the most unrealistic part of the movie. He's got all this computer gear and there's not a hint of porn anywhere.
No graphic displays.
Vector graphic porn.
He doesn't have a graphical display. He just has a character display.
That's right. Yeah.
The equivalent at the time would have been printer art.
Yeah, it's printer dot with the
dot matrix.
Yeah, there's the.
There were some grayscale
printer. So.
There were some grayscale nude printer art where it would achieve grayscale by overprinting.
Oh, Richard, I am so glad you were here to point this out. I really am. I really truly.
Remember, they used to, when you went to festivals and stuff like that, they would give you a dot matrix picture of yourself. They would print it out, and it was pretty neat. Yeah.
Marcus is here.
I think we didn't answer one question in this movie: is how she get a D in home ec?
Burnt everything.
She needs to learn how to make sandwiches better.
Yeah.
Second wave feminism.
She's not the one with the computer. It's the guy.
Yeah.
How old-fashioned is that? By the way, we were talking about the names of computers like Whopper. I believe the early Los Alamos National Laboratory one for research was called Maniac.
Yep.
Mathematical
There were a lot
analyzer,
of
numerical integrator, and computer Maniac.
there was the ENIAC and the ILIAC, and there were a lot of those ENIAC type machines in the early 50s.
Did this Whopper have fries with it, or was it just the Whopper?
Well, I would say in the wrong circumstance, it can make a whole lot of fries.
It can. They make a lot of fries. But yeah, he's a bit of a slacker.
I was reading some messages on the internet where they thought that it was unrealistic for him to have a program that would dial every number to see which one was answered by a modem.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that is 100% legit because we did it.
Yeah.
Yes.
We did it before this movie came out. As soon as we figured out we could dial a number with the modem, that was the very first thing we did, was to dial every single number in the local exchange to find out which were connected to modems.
Protivision, I have you now.
I have you. But this is a really nice plot device, though. He's just looking for a computer game company.
Yep.
In Colorado. Like they're in Colorado.
He's just a good-natured slacker.
This is how it falls into the.
They were in Sunnyvale.
Look at that! Look at that!
The game company was in Sunnyvale, which is Silicon Valley.
Yep.
No. All right, I thought they were in Colorado.
He's in Colorado.
No,
it's the
phone line.
Oh, sorry. Or is he? No, he's in Seattle. Sorry, he's in Seattle.
The phone line. The phone line is in Sunnyvale.
Yes, because it's they have it on a chart later. This one was open. This line was open.
Yeah, and he calls an operator to find out the exchanges.
Yeah, so I love the fact he just falls into this. He's not trying to be malicious. He's not trying to do anything wrong.
He's a beta tester.
Yeah. He's a beta male.
At least they were smart enough by now to know to use 555 for the exchange and 311 for the area code that's displayed on screen. So none of them are valid phone numbers.
Yep.
Right.
Didn't they have a situation like that in Hollywood where they made up a phone number for a movie?
Yeah,
555. And this guy basically complained to the studio because people kept fucking calling him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also in popular songs, the phone number 8675309 has to be blocked out in every area code.
I think there in Buffalo, the police chief's daughter, that was her phone number.
Was it really?
5309. It was published in a pop-up video on VH1, so it must be true.
I like the fact that Ali Sheedy, after demanding that he doesn't change her grade, now sneaks back and asks him to do it.
Well, women always know what they want.
Exactly. Change their mind. Oh, he's playing. I see. We called that game Galaxians, but it was Galaxy.
Galaga.
Galaga. It was in Britain. They branded it as Galaxians in Britain.
I thought they were two different games, but just very similar.
That sign looked actually on VHS. That sign looked professionally printed, but now on his door, no entry.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. He's not even got any porn lying around on the floor. I mean, what's wrong with this kid? Where's the
Galaga
Playboy?
is a sequel to Galaxian.
Is it? All right. Well, I stand corrected. But I played Galaxian.
Did you really get me an A, David?
Did you really? Can you get me A's in everything? Well, let me see the page.
Can I? Yes.
Can I? But why would I?
Oh, and now we're seeing what he's got.
Right.
So
Ooh,
yeah,
Pan Am.
like Marcus is talking about the phone. You used to be able to do a lot with the old phone system if you knew how. What numbers to call.
Well, do we remember how much phone calls used to be?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
If you knew the right numbers, you could get the public phone to phone you back.
Yep.
And do all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Uh-oh, he's
So him
discovered
calling in to
something.
make an airline reservation is completely realistic. Travel agencies would have these special terminals that were wired
Sabre.
into the reservation network system.
Yep.
And coming back to the AN FSQ7, the Sage computer, the airline reservation system was called Sabre, and it was a derivative software product based on the real-time flight control monitoring system. So they made a real-time reservation system, and IBM marketed the Sabre system.
I just have to pause this. This guy's so technologically advanced, he's got a large satellite dish on his bicycle.
Now, before we get to the nerds at the college, the part where he's got the voice synthesizer, attached to his computer, on the commentary, the writers were saying they thought that they had invented something and that was a little bit too futuristic. But no, it was completely period of the time. There was a peripheral you could buy called a Votrax voice synthesizer that would convert text to speech.
And
I know because I used one around 79.
So I just want to, Eclay Thomason has just become a member. Thank you, Eclay. Like many others earlier, were gifted memberships by our good friends D-Bud and Legalize. I think Eclay might actually have signed up.
And I mentioned the speech synthesizer that go ahead.
Oh, hang on, Max. Yeah, while I get through this. It's at the get the flock out level. Some suspicious looking faces on those sheep.
Yeah. And the voice for the speech synthesizer was John Wood reading each one of those. He read each one of those words. Yeah, it was his voice reading them backwards, one at a time. As to sound, conceptually inverted.
Yeah. So this was at a college, nearby college.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, these are archetypal computer nerd characters.
Mm-hmm.
And
they don't want anybody knowing what they're doing.
Yeah, but look, he's got an oscilloscope. This is, you could tell, oscilloscope, computer nerd.
And you can tell that there's just like this friend, even though it's pensive and there's tense and pensive. There's a friendship between these two guys.
Oh yeah. Remember?
Well, the best part is when he's like, do you remember when you told me to remind you when you're being insensitive and rude to other people?
Yeah.
This is one of those times.
This is one of those times.
Well, you can see it would be nice to see more of these two characters.
Biotoxic and chemical warfare. This didn't come from Protovision.
No.
That's right. Yeah, there's some nice games on there. So the differences we're probably talking about more, but between this and Colossus, which we had such a great stream on, was that Colossus wanted to take over affairs and quickly seized the opportunity to. Whopper at this point isn't doing any of that. Whopper's just doing what it was programmed to do right now. It hasn't. I don't think it's even thinking of. It's prompted to learn by David doing all this stuff.
Yeah. Just like
70s. Can you throw in those two pictures that I sent you, because they're right at this point where he visits the college?
Right, hang on, mate.
And you know what the best part about the song in the interlude is? There are actually lyrics to it. Let me find what the song is.
Did you email this to me, mate? Or
yeah, I emailed it to you earlier today.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, I'm looking in the wrong place. Looking. Here we go. Let me just get these sorted out.
That's a blast from the past. An NEC monitor.
Hang on, I gotta just share the screen. Share screen. So let's see what you sent me. There you go.
Okay, so earlier we talked about supercomputers. this is all control data equipment that they're walking through when they visit the university, and Control Data is the company that created the first, vector-based high-speed, floating point numerical calculation-oriented machines that got the name supercomputer. And if you go to the next, this is all disk drives and tape drives.
That looks like
here.
a 70s laundromat.
And
it does, doesn't it?
This right here, the guy on the big beige console, the very large one, that's a CDC vector console that you would use to interact with the machine. And the little white terminal in front of that, that's just a plain old ASCII telearray. It's probably a T10 terminal. But this kind of supercomputer setup, this is probably like a CDC 6600 period machine. This would have been a very smoking hot machine for a university to have around this time. University of Delaware had one that ran the Plato system, which was one of the first interactive educational software type systems. And Plato pioneered a lot of things. We could, there's whole talks about that. But I just wanted to bring this up because, the whole supercomputer idea is going to keep coming up in this movie. And it's just really interesting that as he's going to visit these guys at the college, he's actually walking through a period supercomputer of the day.
Yeah, that's cool.
As Joe says, some guy's going to walk up to one of those cabinets, open the front door, and take their laundry out of it.
Exactly.
Those top-loading disk drives were often referred to as like dishwashing machines, and if you wrote a program that would have the head on the disk seek from the innermost cylinder to the outermost cylinder just in a loop, it would cause an oscillating vibration on the machine and cause the machine to start walking across the floor. Because you would slowly get into the inner cylinder, one cylinder at a time. Then you would see rapidly all the way to the exterior, and as the head was moved by such force, it would basically whack against some kind of stop bar, a big metal stop bar, but it would impart enough force that it would move the machine, the whole thing a little. You just do that repeatedly, and it will walk itself across the floor until.
It's incredible to think about it. Yeah,
it's Skynet 0.5.
Yeah. So Joe's been threatening people to turn up to the show. I like your style, Joe. Keep doing it.
Great.
Ariel Bally, you're here now. There is no escape. Thank you for being here, though. Thank you to everybody for being here. There was another chat I wanted to. Oh yeah, so Snorty is saying, remember old TV shows and movies when they showed tape drives and they referred to those as computers. So the tape spinning round was enough to show, hey, look at our computer.
Yeah, it's a high-tech computer, right?
Never mind all the other stuff. Just the tape.
I think the most recent movie to show something like that was Winter Soldier in the MCU. That huge-ass computer they had down in the basement that place.
That was an old computer, though, that was appropriate for that machine.
Yeah. Very cool.
It is the case that of a large mainframe from the 50s through the 70s, the most of what you would see is the big rows of disk drives and the big rows of tape drives. And then one cabinet somewhere contains the CPU with no lights or anything moving on it. So it looks like, just a cabinet storing crap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they always had the tape drives because it gave them something visually going on.
Now, at this point, David's still got no idea who he's talking to in this. He's busy researching Falcon, but he's got no idea about the computer he was talking to. Still thinks it's the game company.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But he's doing some heavy-duty research, isn't he, on this guy?
It's like, why does it? It's like, and no one asks, why doesn't he put this much effort into his schoolwork?
I know,
right?
Falcon's maze.
I know why, because I was that kid in high school, and the answer is that this is an interesting problem, whereas the problems you got in class were so
mundane,
quickly solved that you solved the problem in like 5 minutes, and then you spent 15 minutes waiting for the rest of the class to catch up, so you get bored, you screw off, you fuck with other people in class, you become a quote-unquote problem student, and so on.
And it always happens to the guys that are really brilliant because they get bored quick,
And the song that was right after Melvin pointed out, the first game on the list, go right through Falcon's Maze, and we have that really cool research. That's a song called "History Lesson," which was performed by Arthur Rubinstein and a group called the Beepers, and they're
the band the Beepers. Yeah,
and there's and it's good. And basically, it goes Paleozoic, Mesozoic. How do you feel? How do you think it feels to become extinct? That's the basic. Those are the basic lyrics. One day I just happened across a version of it. So
cool. The Beepers.
My favorite part of when he does his research is when he's going through microfilm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the library back in the day, wasn't it? Yeah.
Those things used to give me a headache.
That was how you got access to any periodical that the library didn't have on hand. They would go through a library loan system, get the microfilm, and get it shipped, mailed over, and then you would go through the microfilm and they'd send it back.
So here's the pivotal moment where we play a game? Kicks this shit off.
Shall we play a game?
Oh.
I think I missed him.
Yeah, weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Love to. How about global thermonuclear war?
Yeah, he's not mucking about. He heads straight for the big one.
Wouldn't you?
Let's play
a good game of chess.
Yes. Yeah, he goes, let's go for the big one.
There is someone did like an online version of the game. It's like it's a rapid response. You have to be like as fast as a computer, just like to launch from and to targets. But it's visually very similar. So
an interesting effects bit for this movie is that the prop master created software so that the actors would type on the keyboard, but it didn't matter what they typed, and it would echo out the correct text appropriate for the scene.
Oh, okay. Right.
So you get the real clicky noises of them typing on the keyboard. You don't actually see their fingers, right? Yeah. And the text comes out perfect on the screen every time.
Is it?
Okay.
It's always annoys me when you watch a movie or a TV show when someone's supposed to be doing something on the computer, especially some wizard hacker, and they're typing away furiously.
Yeah.
That isn't really what happens. Nobody types away furiously like that to do these things. They'll kick a program off to do it, or they'll type a couple of command lines. They won't be typing away furiously like that.
My favorite is when they're typing and you hear the sound of a mechanical teletype, and as the letters come out on the CRT screen. That's my favorite.
That's right.
Movies. There's Barry Corbin putting up, give him a little red, man,
Yeah. But this is great. I love this. When I first saw it, I thought, this is so good. It's actually going to kick this shit off. It's happening.
Ariel asked a good question, and I'm typing to respond to her, but she asked, so what would have happened if he decided to play the U.S. instead of Russia?
Yeah.
And I told her they probably would have thought they had lost control of their assets. They were going rogue or something.
Would it have simulated the U.S. first launching missiles on the screens?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, and like I said, the economy of scenes where it's like, get the missiles in the bullpen ready to fly, get me the president on the phone, and then Michael Ensign, who plays Colonel Connolly, it's like presses 4 buttons and he hands him the phone. It's like, Mr. President. It's like this guy can get the president. Pick up a phone, dial 4 buttons, and he's got the president.
Well, if you guys wonder about that acronym there, SAC stands for Strategic Air Command. That's Minot Air Force Base, and the one right next to me, Barksdale Air Force Base. That's where the B-52s with the nukes fly out of.
While he's celebrating his faked report card.
And it's funny they mentioned Cobra Dane there too. My dad actually worked on that radar system in the 70s when he worked for Maycom.
There were 2 layers. There was the dew line and there was Cobra Dane. Those were 2 layers of radar, early warning radar in Canada.
Alaska.
Eventually, and I'm sorry. There was dew line and there was another line, and Cobra Dane was in Canada, and we still have PAVE PAWS, which is 2 large phased array radars, and we still have a lot of phased array radars to not a lot, but we still have phased array radars to try and pick up things coming out of the atmosphere.
He's getting rid of the stash now, boy.
That's right.
He's getting rid of it all.
I'm not Falcon. Yeah,
I regret everything. Make it stop.
I'm sorry to hear that, Professor. Yes.
Sorry to hear that. Game time elapsed.
He called
So
me back.
apparently the writers had some discussion amongst themselves about whether or not the idea of the system running a simulation was realistic to trigger, an alert, an errant simulation that was interpreted as real.
Yeah.
And they didn't think it was believable, but while the movie was wrapping up, an actual incident happened where a simulation caused things to go on alert, and they said, "Oh, I guess now people will find our movie believable when it's
We're
released."
saying it's not that far from what could be real.
Well, that's what I mentioned in the intro. That was Able Archer 83 of, it wasn't our systems, but the Soviet counterpart to it basically kind of interpreted it as a real thing.
Yeah.
And wasn't able to distinguish a real event from false input for a simulation. The entire Soviet nuclear force immediately went ballistic.
There was the man Colonel Stanislav Petrov who picked up he was at one of the radar early warning stations, and he picked up just for reference, the Soviet and later Russian satellite systems are notoriously unreliable for picking up the infrared of missile thrust. And we have something called the space-based infrared satellite system, which basically picks up the second that it comes. And basically Petrov saw, there's five missiles inbound. That doesn't make sense. Why would they do a first strike with 5 missiles? And he didn't call it in. And it turned out that it was a malfunction. But it was in, I believe, 82 or 83, and it could have been one of those events.
It was November 83, I think. So it was right after this movie came out.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just wanted to say there's another one of these unrealistic things in the movie. They mentioned the governor of New Jersey being in there. Chris Christie could never fit in that room.
Never. Well, it's the Defcon. The president sets the defense condition, and of course, again, economy of scenery. You have to have someone calling him, and you can have Reagan in this. So General Behringer was the one who said, "Take us to Defcon 4. Take us to Defcon 4."
Mm-hmm. You know what I do like about this movie is that they do not make the military look like bumbling idiots or bad guys. It's they're doing their best to figure out what's going on here. Neither are they being overly reactive.
And they're responding as they're trained to.
Yes.
This is the nightmare scenario. We're doing our jobs. We're making sure it's for real, but we're doing our jobs.
And they figure out pretty quickly that somebody's triggered this from outside.
And Barry Corbin said that he did not want to play like the typical psycho general.
Yeah.
Like psycho bombs away.
Jack D. Ripper.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's skeptical and common sense. Yep.
Jack D. Ripper, who himself was an analog for Curtis LeMay, General Curtis LeMay, who was one of the founders of SAC.
Yeah. So this is funny.
If anything, this movie portrays McKittrick as an arrogant, full of hubris.
Once again, it's Dabney Coleman. He's great at playing a prick. He just is.
He's the heel.
Was he aware that the computer actually had all these games in it that could be triggered? I don't know if he was.
Who, McKittrick?
McKittrick.
No,
because
he didn't have the back door.
But it's implied that he does not know.
He didn't have the back door. Yeah,
he can't. Yeah, and he can't even believe that a computer would call people.
Yeah.
And just a nice technical note, you notice there's springs on the columns, which is very true to the actual architecture of NORAD for blast protection.
It's a great set.
Yeah.
A brilliant set.
Yeah, when he says, computers don't call people, I'm like,
what?
Well, I guess if you're a bit of a fuddy-duddy computer guy at that time, you're older and not tracking the latest things that's going on, you might say that, but we did it all the time.
Just to address something that's in the chat, it's like, why did they bring David to NORAD?
Right to NORAD. Yes,
right to NORAD. It's that economy of scenery.
Yeah, this place that you've just tried to cause chaos in, we're going to bring you to it, even though we think you might be a spy.
Yep.
Yeah. However, I'll do like this. Is the sets were so good.
Yeah.
There's Ronnie looking down on
There's
us.
Ronnie.
I'm going to argue that at
My
this
old
time,
boss.
to get the specifics of how he compromised the system out of the kid, you have to have somebody that's an expert with the system itself be the one asking the questions, and that's McKittrick.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you were going to say something, Joe?
Oh no, not at all. I was just
going to say
responding.
why didn't he have what's his name? Why didn't he have Paul Richter? It's played by Irving Meltzman, who I originally thought was also the voice of Roger Rabbit, but why wouldn't he and Richter like try and talk to the kid like?
Yeah. What did you do? How did you do it?
Yeah,
what were you using?
But you know, you had to keep the thing going.
Well, McKittrick starts to talk to him, and then like shit goes down, and he's got to go into the main room, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the Whopper stole.
Whopper's still going through the
password.
simulation. They've
And
got,
McKittrick doesn't know that yet.
And they left him alone in a room with a computer terminal.
That also had the voice synthesizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Now this is funny. I think this is when I see this
artistic
scene, I always imagine this is Pope as the guard.
No, that's me. I'm the MP, man. Come on.
You're the MP. That's true. It should be Joe.
In the heady days before sexual harassment was
Chat-
a thing.
I hear you're a pretty good tennis player.
That's Are you up to something? Are you trying something? So
the best part is when that scene ends, he's like, "Am I bothering you?" She's like, "Yes."
Yeah.
Do you want me to leave you alone? Yes.
Yep.
So here's where he shows his technical ingenuity.
And and I just I never understood this part, but I mean I kind of relate, but it's like I saw the chips because my dad's TI also had a cassette drive, but I guess he creates a backup loop and he's
backing up the
what he's doing. Okay, he figures out that the door lock is using a DTMF tone generator, which is the same tone that's tones that are generated on, push button phones. So he's recording the tones as they're played, and then he's playing them back.
Okay.
Miss Fine. I heard you voted to Miss Fine in 1979. Talk about the cheesiest chat up lines in history.
Yeah, I was going to say, and another way you know that's not me is because I would never wear that mustache. Never.
I think that whole, pickup scene, the whole point is just to drive home that the guard is distracted.
Oh, I know.
So that David has time to work his little scheme.
Obviously.
He's a smooth operator.
Yeah, he is.
He's just by magic,
really.
He's disappeared.
Yep. And then one of the other guys, it's like, I love it when one of the FBI guys uses the Banaka.
Yep.
All these guards standing around and nobody notices a
It's one, Ariel. It's Defcon 1. That means we're at nuclear war.
Yeah.
It's a countdown.
Yeah.
At rest, we're at 5.
Yeah.
I would say, I think usually we're at 4 most of the time, though, aren't we?
Yeah. During
they got it backwards.
During the Cuban Missile Crisis, there were the elements of the nuclear forces were at DEFCON 2. That's as high as the status.
Close as we've gotten. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much silos open, keys are in. We're ready to kick this thing off.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give an overview, the bombers can take off. The B-52 bombers can take off in 10 minutes, and then the missiles can launch within a minute. The subs need about 14 to 15 minutes to get to launch depth, to calibrate, and then launch. So those are our response. Those are our response times. It's about 27 minutes for a missile to get here from Russia, 33 from North Korea. Literally, it is about 6 to 7 minutes if it is sub launch with the right distance. So.
No, I enjoyed this
sure
part.
You guys all remember pull tabs.
Yep.
I enjoyed this part because he's showing off some old school skills.
Yeah. Back in the day before the wide mouths.
Yeah.
Yep.
and here's the thing. Well, here's the thing about this scene. What's the cop do? What does he do with the cop? It's like, what, and I guess I like that that they just sort of left that to mystery. But it's like, isn't like everyone looking for this guy and a cop pulls up right there?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a picture. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for the visual, bro.
That's right. They inserted that just for one reason only.
I need an
the FBI picked him up. They thought he was still inside NORAD. Local cops don't know jack about him.
All right. Well,
this is 83. They wouldn't have a picture of him either. At most, they would have a name.
I need an airline ticket to get into Ali Sheedy's tight.
Right? Walk out.
Yeah, 22 Typhoon class submarines per Petropavlovsk during South.
I agree. The caviar is terrible. Hate it.
Yeah, and it's another. I read the Soviets only ever had 6 Typhoon class submarines. So
was Sean Connery a captain of one of them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ariel was asking earlier who his assistant was, and the actor's name's Michael Ensign. And you may remember him from Ghostbusters. He's the guy that didn't want to pay
that's ridiculous.
them after the
okay,
right.
Well, let's put it back in. No.
He's the guy in the hotel.
The 22 Typhoon subs. This is all made up by Whopper. So.
Yeah,
the fact that there's 22 instead of the expected 6 or whatever, that could, there's even a little bit where the guy says, we have intelligence that they have a stealth fighter that can project its image 600 miles away from where it actually is. So the computer is just feeding them line after line of bullshit in order to move the scenario along.
Look, I'm the nav geek. So anyway, I'm just
saying.
Yeah.
If the numbers don't match, it's all part of Whopper's plan to get them to escalate to Defcon 1.
And so the interaction between Ali Sheedy and Matthew Broderick on the ferry and later in the scene, like where they're swinging, it really drives home that emotional connection, which it makes these two characters so much more.
Yeah, and it also shows how scared they were. They're teenagers, and they've grown up in the Cold War era where we learned at early age to duck and cover, get under the desk, that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's really hitting home that he may have started something that's going to escalate into his biggest fear, right? Yeah, yeah, it's really great stuff.
What I'm surprised about with Falcon is that the CIA or whatever just didn't get rid of him. That they allowed him to retire.
Right.
They didn't just get rid of him. They didn't just disappear him completely. Yeah. Well,
did you actually have duck and cover exercises when you were in school, Joe?
Yeah. Yeah. When I was a kid,
because it was a thing that was already discontinued by the time I got there, but
you got to remember, I'm in a tornado zone too in northern Louisiana.
Okay,
it was a catch-all for a lot of things.
I was in Cook County, Illinois, so same here.
No,
this is great though because again, they're not showing the military panicking. Barry Corbin's character is level-headed. Let's get a physical check on this. Oh, that screen, by the way, that's an Apple II apparently. That's doing the countdown.
You got 40 miles visibility here, Joe. Nothing but blue sky.
Yeah. So they're doing the sensible
like an
thing.
Ordinary VFD display. Where'd you learn it was an Apple II?
Well, because I can read. Because it's in a number of sites about the movie.
Okay. What I love is the computer graphics they show, like the 2 jets they showed on the radar. That is, for the time, that was some high-tech graphics, man. That was really cool looking when you saw that in the theater.
Yeah. But Richard, I'm willing to bow to your knowledge.
I'm just going by what it looks like to me. I don't have any specific knowledge. So, I trust you.
And here we have the discussion
I've never
about
had an Apple II, so
philosophy.
Yeah. And what's funny is he's already at peace with all of this going on.
Yep.
He's not even worried about it. And those 2 kids are getting more and more scared by the second. The more time that goes by, the more. What's funny is Matthew Broderick starts as a cocky, headstrong dude, and by the end of the movie, he's scared out of his mind. You know what I mean? That he's going to cause the end of the world, right? Oh, it's pretty cool.
That's it's sad though. I mean, it's sad that he's so broken up that he's locked himself away for the rest of his life.
It is, yeah. It is. The scientist. Oh yeah,
it's sad.
But hey, people, and this is because of grief, right? It's because of the loss of his son.
His son,
that this happened.
Wife and son.
Yeah, and people grieve in different ways, and Matthew Broderick's able to bring him out of it to save the world, right? That's the important thing. Yeah,
he needs him because no one else would believe him,
right?
And and then we have this scene because we need to answer the question: who the hell does live in Seattle and doesn't? sorry, 70s.
He's not got a homeless encampment living on his island yet.
Yeah.
I can't swim. Good Lord.
Oh, this bit's quite good. I can't swim. Yeah, it's neat, and it's again as you said, it's not wasting any. There's no extended scenes here. Everything's to the point, which I like.
And I love this. I love the part where because you have the score where they're chasing him, and that leads directly into the attack, into the incoming attack scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. Get in. Oh my God! It's John Wood in a helicopter.
That's right. But. Okay, this is it's starting to heat up now.
This is a great scene. Tell me this is one of your exercises, Mr. McKittrick. No.
Yeah, but it's interesting that the artificial intelligence part is clearly a very, very powerful computer whopper.
Yeah.
It's not trying to do anything to take. It's not like Colossus. It's not trying to take over humanity. It's just doing what it thinks it's supposed to do.
Yeah. What does the Whopper recommend, Mr. McKittrick? Full retaliatory strike. I don't need some machine to tell me
that, right? He's so great. He steals every scene he's in, man. Yep. He's fantastic.
Yep.
He's just such a big personality in this movie too. Like you say, he owns every scene he's in.
Oh yeah.
And you don't see many military commanders that are shown like that. Most of them are like, mega maniacal and stuff like this. Yeah. This guy's just a regular dude you'd have a beer with after work. You know what I mean?
I mean, and it's like, Kubrick, you have all these great Kubrick in Strangelove. You have all these scenes with Gerald Turgidson, George Patton. He had to record those scenes on the sly. Like, hey, George, just go nuts for a second and we'll loosen up. But those are the scenes he actually used because he wanted that caricature general.
Now, did he press that button? Who pressed the lockout change button, or was it pressed?
It was Major Lim.
Okay. So the one thing that bugs me about this set, they could have got all these consoles to get the lights to flash in sequence. That really annoys me. They just flash all over the place. Get them to flash in sequence.
Yeah, well,
that's an Airplane 2 joke.
Okay, now I got to watch that. Okay, start with
the washing machine joke we told earlier is from Airplane 2 because they didn't they do that with a radar console in that movie?
Yeah,
either the first.
That's
or the
right.
second.
Yeah.
Are you prepared to destroy the enemy? Don't you think? Then don't.
Right.
Tell the president to ride out the attack.
Okay, 70s. I did some quick research, and it turns out we're both correct.
Aha!
The
I knew you couldn't be wrong, but I also
the display technology is an early prototype of a flat panel display, and it's a vacuum fluorescent display. So that is correct. That the thing he says, game time remaining, that's a vacuum fluorescent display, like they were commonly used on like car dashboards.
That was me in the theater.
Yep. And if
But,
you notice-
sorry, hang on, everybody. One at a time. Richard was talking.
But the display itself is driven by an Apple II, and there's a guy sitting inside the Whopper typing commands into the Apple II to cause the exterior light sequence to change.
So like an extra is sitting there typing.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing's made out of plywood.
Okay. And if you notice, when General Behringer gets on the phone with the president, he's like blinking, like, we have cause to believe these do not exist. Like, he's like, oh crap, I might be responsible for the deaths of more millions of people. So
yeah.
And just again with the 2-man rule, it's like he's got Joe, the major. He's the one who presses the button. You would normally have 2 people pressing the button.
So just Emperor's NM. It's good to see Emperor's. Are those big screens vector graphics? They are. It's vector graphics being projected on those screens from stuff that was filmed using these HP computers, painstakingly filmed. Each screen set up, then filmed, and then projected later onto the screens for the movie. So, but it is vector graphics.
Yep.
Unlike some things that you see where, like Hitchhiker's British TV series, where they actually animated the graphics.
Mm-hmm.
When you see all that computer graphic stuff in the Hitchhiker show, I believe it's all animated. There was no actual production of a computer for computer graphics. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know about you guys going to see this in the theater, but I remember whenever those guys in Loring answered him back, they were cheering in my theater when I saw it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie, when you saw it in the theater, it really got you, man. The whole thing, because of the time it was made. I mean, this was a serious thing we were all afraid of. You know,
it's tension and it's playing out in real time.
Don't you think I tried that ABC 1, 2, 3, 4?
That's right. I think I tried that. They're busy throwing reams of paper out.
Yep.
Oh my god.
I go.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's see. That's the one with the laundry in it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're not out of the woods yet.
No.
The Whopper has taken over.
It's getting the launch codes. Yeah.
Has codes to launch the missiles. Can't they pull the plug? Oh no, sir. The system is now failed. It's now gone from fail safe to fail deadly.
Mm-hmm. And this is where their own engineering bites them.
What do you plan to tell him? I plan to tell him we might just start World War III anyway.
Yeah. Hey. He's incredibly calm. I like that.
And they've taken out the back door.
Yep.
Which is nice to see that they actually did learn their lesson.
So the password is password. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Incredible. I have the same password on my luggage.
And so now
it's just like an archer when the password is username guest, password guest.
That's right. Yeah. And you know what? That's so funny because it's true for so many people.
True for so many IT professionals too. They just can't be bothered creating a system password for the moment they just put in there and then never go back to it.
What's cool about this scene here is everybody is giving him suggestions on what to do all around him.
Yeah.
You know, when he's playing the game with them.
And let me tell you, there's the guy who points his finger. Everyone told him it would be a futile gesture and he shouldn't spend 12 years going to school for it. But he eventually became the United States Air Force's premier expert in tic-tac-toe. There he was behind David Lightman.
Who says it isn't useful?
No,
one of the most boring games.
Put X in the center square. There it is, right there.
One of the most boring games in the history of games.
Oh man!
You know,
just how boring is that?
And he uses it to draw. To teach. He uses it to teach the system. Well,
Can you make it play itself? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've always hated that game. It's like,
it's
God, what's the point?
Crystal, to answer Ariel's question, Crystal Palace is NORAD and Brass Hat is General Behringer.
Wait a minute. So if you go back, I'll try and go back a scene. It's hard to sometimes.
Yeah, there's a continuity error.
Well, no, it's not even that. So you've got the big guys busy staring at the flashing lights on Whopper. What is that achieving?
They're checking making sure that there's no errors.
Are they trying to see if they're flashing in sequence? Because that's important.
There could be an error somewhere, you know.
It's that's purely a movie moment.
Irving Meltzman has to have his chance to chew up the scenery.
But yeah, I'm going to go stare at those flashing lights. Talk to me, Whopper. Talk to me. There he is. So what's he looking for? What is he looking for?
He's checking for the one that's maybe green.
Yeah. Well, they're all red and yellow. Yep. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's a pure movie effect moment there, right?
Yep.
It's the Whopper. The Whopper's just a big box full of LEDs, I guess.
Right. Pretty much.
Yeah, for this.
It's got the code. It's going to
making sure it's not overclocked. Is it updated to the latest NVIDIA drivers? It's
updating its firmware.
Major Davis, get me the president while we still can.
Give me a launch status report. Nothing's launched. Really? Cool.
I love this moment where everything's just every example of strategy goes through and none of it works.
Snort, if you didn't catch it, if they'd unplugged the computer, it would have thought that it had been blown up in a nuclear attack and it would have launched everything. So they can't do that.
Which is known as a failed deadly system.
Right.
I'll go into Russia's system in a minute, but let's just enjoy the scene.
Oh, man. The showering of missiles scene, just lighting up the whole room is really cool.
You can't unplug computers in these things because what it does is it kills you with an electric shock for trying to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Traditionally what happens.
Or it imprisons you in an automated wheelchair like in Demon Seed.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
Good one. Yeah, good one.
You know.
But here we go. The game
is
Professor Falcon. The game is no longer afoot.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to
play.
Not
That's
to
right.
play.
Wouldn't you prefer a good game of chess?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Nice game of chess.
I may not have many clips, but I have that one.
Hello, Joshua. Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
Clips were hard to do for this because of copyright.
Yeah.
That was the whole concept of mutually assured destruction, was that there is no way to win. You just live 30 minutes longer than the other guy.
And to illustrate what the concept of a failed deadly system is, Russia has something that's called perimeter, which the Russians were always scared of us, even and especially in the 80s when we upgraded our submarine launch ballistic missiles, that we would be able to get a definitive first strike advantage. What they have is if there is a nuclear detonation detected and there is a loss of contact with Moscow, there is a computer system that'll say, okay, we're going to launch a rocket that has the command codes to launch all the Russian nuclear forces. Now, it's never been confirmed, and we know it's there, but it's officially, unofficially. Now, we don't know if there is a human being in between Moscow's been bombed. We picked up a nuclear weapon, and Moscow's been bombed. You're clear to press the button. Does someone press the button, or does it automatically go?
Knowing the Soviets, probably not. There was probably just a system, just go.
Yeah, so that is what failed deadly is. We have a fail-safe system where you need what's called a positive control launch message that's authentic and that's authenticated. So
they've got more of a dead man's switch, fail deadly. So the difference between Whopper and Colossus again, which I'm fascinated because Colossus is such a great film, is that really Whopper here isn't yet an artificial intelligence. It's just a very, very fast computer. It only begins to learn at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It starts its learning journey there. It may become an artificial intelligence in time, but it isn't there yet. It has to learn so it can avoid this. They can avoid this disaster. So it's a very different scenario, I think. And it has, at this point, has no designs on teaming up with a Russian supercomputer and taking over the world.
Well, I still contend that the moment where the two supercomputers linked up was the moment they became self-aware. I don't think either one had the processing ability to fully become intelligent until that point.
Yes.
But when you network the two, then you hit critical mass, essentially.
Yeah, I think so. But it's fascinating because then what do they do with Whopper after the movie? Now I know there was a sequel to the movie which I've never seen. Years later.
No.
If they have any brains, take it out back and shoot it.
I'll take Joe's word for it. You know, there actually was an app where it was a game, an app-based game. It's not they don't have it's, but it was visually very interesting.
So Imp is showing us this game.
Yeah, it was the only video game version that I'm aware of this movie. It was for the ColecoVision.
ColecoVision.
Coleco.
I actually had one of those when I was a kid, and I did actually play this game, and I could figure it out worth a damn.
Was it as good as Missile Command? Because that was the game I played.
Did I not just say I couldn't figure it out? What does that tell you? Considering the ColecoVision, like the Intellivision, had a keypad on its controller that had overlays, and you also needed those buttons as well.
The first game I played was Zaxxon on ColecoVision.
Yep, same here, actually.
So has anyone played this game?
I have, not since I was, like 6.
Right. Was it text-based or?
No, it was...
It had some graphics.
Yeah.
Vector graphics,
yeah.
I'm assuming.
No, not even. It was a little bit better than what the Atari was doing at the time, but not as good as the Nintendo eventually did.
Okay.
The ColecoVision actually did have really good graphics for its era, just its controllers sucked.
Yeah.
Vince is saying there was a game called Defcon based on...
Yes, I have played that one.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good.
Yeah, I've not played either of those, but and D-Bud's posting, for anyone who hasn't seen it, that's the most successful stream we've ever done on this channel, the Colossus Forbin Project stream, 15k viewers and so far, and another couple of hundred every day. That one's going to go for a while, which is great. Go check that one out if you missed it. That was even if we say so ourselves, that was a very enjoyable stream.
It's the most successful stream so far.
So far, until Max legalized joined us in this one.
It's evergreen.
It's evergreen. So I love this movie. I think even at the time it seemed real or feasible. Now we're 40 years or more on.
Yeah.
I mean, we just don't know just how much control computers have now over the.
And
it's probably
no, we don't.
Most of it.
No.
Mm.
I mean, we don't, it's, we have what we call AI, but it's not really, it's not sentience. It's really just, we have the point where economically it's feasible to handle this much big data almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
I would think of current generation AI as an extremely sophisticated Mad Lib generator in terms of producing content. But it's the flip side is it's, as Redstone was saying, it's very good at assimilating large data sets and producing a compact summary for interpretation by some human being.
Yeah.
I would like to think
wrong.
that the military has plenty of computers controlling details, but there's still a human in the loop.
Well, the role in the past was more of an analysis and a data compilation role rather than we're going to let this launch a missile. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they're using them for now, and how many. Where is the human? It's like a breaker. Where is the human in that process?
Exactly.
Look, if this movie teaches us anything, we need to keep humans in that loop, no doubt.
It teaches us we need Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy if it's set in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
She needs to be doing yoga splits.
She does.
Yep.
So as Ariel that Ballet says, now you guys finish this one, will you do a trilogy and watch Red Dawn, then Spies Like Us? Well, that would be a quadrilogy if we consider Colossus as part of it. Well, I mean, those are great movies that one day we will probably do. I think we were on a theme of AI with Colossus and this movie. There are others, some of which are more about just computers that go crazy. like Dark Star that I definitely want to do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that was
Demon Seed.
Demon Seed. Yeah, there's a few others that fit into this category we might do. So stay tuned for those. But hey, Red Dawn and Spies Like Us, great movies. Great movies. Yeah, I've always adored this movie. Loved it at the time. I must have watched it a dozen times or more over the years. I like the direction of it just as a movie. I like the pacing and the direction. It's very tight. It looks the part. You mentioned this sort of restricted sets, but they're all great. The things they use work very well for it. So,
well, yeah, it's a great movie. It's a great movie about AI and strategic warfare for the same reason that Blake 7 is one of the greatest sci-fi shows, because it uses. I mean, I say this as a, one of these is a, well, the one up here is a bachelor's in photography, but it's because it uses the scenery so well.
Indeed. So if I just closed the poll off that we had running, it's just a bit of fun. And you can only put 4 things in poll questions. So favorite, best 1980s Matthew Broderick, and 1980s I said. So Ferris Bueller wins with 44%.
Of course it did.
Of course. Fair disclosure, I voted for it.
Baby, twist and shit.
Abe Froman, Party of 3.
Indeed.
The Sausage King of Chicago.
War Games and Glory tied at 19%, and Lady Hawk not far behind at 16%. I've got a soft spot for Lady Hawk. That's a great movie.
That's a good fantasy movie.
More of a Rutger Hauer than a Matthew Broderick, but there you go. Thank you for voting in that poll, everybody, and thank you for everyone in the chat today for your wonderful chats and memberships and all that great stuff. Appreciate it all very much. We will start to wrap up now, so I'd like to thank my wonderful panel today who have added so much to this discussion with some very particularly knowledgeable stuff. Max, my friend, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm sure we'll do it again. What are you up to? You were talking about a channel.
Yeah, I am in Saturday after next going to be starting a Saturday night art channel, just doing my art and seeing where it goes. There's as our past friend Clobbering Times is not on Saturday night, there's sort of a hole in my life now. And I essentially in addition to photography, I also use panoramic cameras. I'm going to see about between now and then if I can live stream the panoramic camera and do sort of like my art with fluorescent paint and blacklight, because it looks really cool, and incorporate it as much as I possibly can as a multimedia experience. If not, it's just going to be me and my art and people talking. We'll see where it goes.
All right, mate. Well, look forward to seeing that, and let us know what you're doing, and we can
absolutely
plug it on future shows, and we'll have you back to talk about that and what you're doing, and I'm sure I'll be in the chat for your show. Yeah. Shit talking in the chat. But thanks for being here, mate. Legalize Adulthood, Richard, my great friend. Thank you for being here and sharing your detailed knowledge of the computing side of things, which is so important to this. Anything you'd like to plug as well?
Sure. You can subscribe to my Legalized Adulthood channel, where I put up various clips and quips from TV shows and movies that I find entertaining. That's kind of sporadic. And then if you want to see some of my long form presentations on vintage computing stuff, you can go over to Computer Graphics Museum channel.
Oh yeah.
There's some presentations there on various vintage computing stuff related that I've presented at Vintage Computing Federation Midwest, which is a show coming up in September where I will be making another presentation.
I'd love to see one of those. Hopefully one day I will be there in person to see one. That would be fun. But yeah, appreciate your knowledge, mate. And thank you very much for being here. And again, we'll do it again someday for sure. Joe, my friend, what's going on? What's going on?
Not much, man. Not much. You guys can go over to the channel, subscribe, and check out the lineup. It's always there under upcoming streams. I Deleted Scenes had me on last night for his After Midnight show, and that was a lot of fun hanging out with those guys. So I did that for the first time. So I've actually done 3 streams, not on my own channel, on Monday now. So, but yeah, go check it out and subscribe to everybody on the panel. They're all great guys. So that being said, look forward to whatever we're doing next, Brian. I'm ready.
Who knows? I've yet to decide about next week. I'm exhausted after prepping for these shows, so I have to take a day to think about it. But it'll be something fun, I'm sure. I mean, we're going to do one of these days. Legalize and I, we're going to do another Who show. We did that great one. We're going to do another one.
That was what, 2 years ago? That was the first episode I was on.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
That's right. We've got to do another one. Keeps promising. Maybe it'll happen this year. But thank you, Joe, for being here. Go subscribe to Joe, everybody.
Always, brother.
Pope, my friend. What's happening, man?
Well, every Saturday at 11 Eastern, you can catch me over on my channel on Rumble, we're doing a 2-hour radio show, basically playing a bunch of music that I listen to, stuff I think you should be listening to if you haven't heard it already. Some recommendations from the audience. And I believe this next Sunday, I'll also on Rumble be doing a show with Christian DeLorme over on Vinyl Revival, talking about the Great Electric Light Orchestra.
I will be there at that.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he already asked me about that one too. I'll be there for that one too. Love Jeff Lynne. Let's do it. Hell yeah.
Other than all that, I should have another episode of Rock and Roll Religion coming out here fairly shortly. Probably doing a final review of maybe featuring people on this panel. Who knows?
Cool. Nice. Look forward to that, mate. Thanks very much for being here.
Invincible Shield by Judas Priest, latest album. So hopefully you guys will join me for all that.
Oh, absolutely, mate. Yeah. Did I tell you I've got tickets to see Priest?
Yep.
I still need a wingman for that. You know, when I can make it.
If I could get there, I'd go. That's the other side of the country.
Let me see if I can go get my passport, buddy.
Where are you?
No. It's going to be in Billings, Montana, because they're not playing. I'm going to drive over to Montana to see them.
Okay.
Because they're not playing in Alberta.
What date?
Oh, geez, October 3rd.
I won't rule it out.
Yeah. Well, it's a while to go yet, but I'm sure we'll figure something out. Also, our great friend Imperitus, how are you, buddy? And thank you for being here. And
tomorrow night, be gaming on Brahma Bull's channel, our usual Tuesday night chaos. If you haven't checked it out, you should. It's just all sorts of dumb fun, and watch us all antagonize each other into a blind rage. Other than that, since I'm on vacation this week, I'm trying to get some stuff done. Joe, I'll be in touch with you. We got some stuff to
ready.
We'll have to figure that out. Other than that, Friday I'll probably be on Ascendant Arc podcast with Little Chad and Slender Dad and Brahma Bull and 70s here joins us, a few other people. And also keep an eye out on the Ascendant Arcade channel. Slender Dad's been posting a bunch of clips of, just our insanity.
And you are insane, that's true.
Insane in the membrane.
Just a touch.
Thanks for being here, brother. It's always great
all the time. Yeah, this was a great movie. This is something that I hadn't even thought about since I was a kid. Movie-wise. It's one of those quintessential 80s movies that almost nobody ever brings up in conversation.
I know, it's weird. Yeah, I've always loved it. It's always been a big movie for
me. Always, everybody I know has always enjoyed the movie, but when they talk 80s movies,
they don't ever bring it up. They don't.
No.
It's always John Hughes movies and stuff.
Yeah. It's not even just John Hughes movies, but it's like Terminator, Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Wargames. Yeah. I mean, it was
the more action-packed ones, not the thinking man's movies.
And it was
right?
pretty on the nose, Wargames. But I was a big science fiction fan, so I loved it right from the start. But although it's more science fiction, it blurs the lines.
It's science. Oh my god! It's science. Oh my god!
Science. We're fracked. So. As for me, as I say, I'm not quite sure what next week will be. It'll be something, though. We'll see you all back here next Monday for some topic or other. I've got a couple of videos out in the last couple of days, but both to do with Korean stuff. One is a review of a great Korean movie called Hijack 1971, based on a true life hijacking where the guy wanted them to fly to North Korea. So it's a pretty thrilling movie. And then another was an unboxing and discussion of a movie called Joint Security Area from back in 2000, one of the seminal Korean movies of the modern era. Got the collector's edition that and unboxed that and talked about that movie. There will be other videos, I'm sure. Later tonight, it'll be over in Comics Division for Monday Night Meltdown. Tomorrow night, Toxic Tuesday on Nick Visor's channel, and I wish I could remember what we were doing.
A Western, I'm sure. Isn't he doing nothing but Western?
It's a Western. True Grit. Is it True Grit?
Okay. I don't know. No. I watched Outlaw Josie Wales last week. That was a great one.
Sorry, Nick, I can't remember what we're doing, but it's a Western, yes. And there'll be other stuff. Thank you to the D-Bud, Martin, and Davina for doing all that great modding today. And thank you to those who donated memberships, Legalize and D-Bud, and also welcome to those who joined using those, and equally who joined too. Thanks to everybody in the chat for all your great support, for continuing to watch these shows and hang out and have fun with us over in Rumble and the Green app and YouTube. So have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we will see you again very soon. So till next time, keep
we'll meet again
on rocking.